so, we would go to a Vietnamese video store on Santa Clara Street. And then it was really close. We could just walk there from the Saigon Muoi. And it was just a narrow little shop, and it had all the videos behind the counter, and the titles were printed in a binder, so I could pick and choose and look. So I would watch Star Wars, Bruce Lee movies, things like that. And then, of course, I found Apocalypse Now, because I was really into war movies. And so somewhere in the early 80s, I watched Apocalypse Now. I think it was my first encounter, possibly, with an American movie of the Vietnam War. And it was a deeply shocking experience for me, because I was totally fascinated by war, but my education had been completely in things like World War I, World War II, the Korean War. And with the Korean War, things were starting to edge a little closer to the Asian thing, or with World War II, movies about Japan. But this was very clearly about Vietnam, and I understood by then, at 11, 12 years of age, that I was Vietnamese, and that it had something to do with this war. Because my classmates at school would tease me about it. These non-Vietnamese kids would make fun of my name. Hey, is your last name Nam, for example? Or, hey, did you carry an AK-47 in the war? I was like, okay, so there's something going on here. So watching that was very interesting because, I was cheering for the American soldiers. I was an American up until the moment that they murdered Vietnamese civilians. And it was a deeply shocking experience. I think that I didn't know what to make out of it. I think that I was split in two because I couldn't reconcile these two things. I identified with the American soldiers, but then these Vietnamese people were being killed, and there was no room in this movie for Vietnamese people to speak or say anything intelligible. We were obviously these total aliens. So who was I? And so I didn't have a language or an ability to make sense out of that, so I just put that away. And then eventually, when I was in college, that movie resurfaced for me, and I was finally able to put into words why that scene was so disturbing, because it was a manifestation of racism, warfare, imperialism, sexism, and it was Vietnamese people being objectified, silenced, and killed. So that awareness that media was bringing racism into my life gradually grew. Because, of course, in the 1980s, if you listen to the radio, sometimes you'd hear, anti-Asian jokes from the DJs, for example. Or you turn on the TV and late at night, there would be, a breakfast at Tiffany's with Mickey Rourke. And so all this, these little pinpricks of racism were there in all the media, the TV and the radio and the movies that I loved. And so I had to try to figure out how to make sense out of all of that. Who was I in this society? And all of that was being delivered through pop culture.